and welcome to part 17 of Shin Megami Tensei V Nocturne, where today we're tackling Puzzle Boy, arguably the hardest part of the entire game, because you have to actually use your brain for all of it. The idea of Puzzle Boy is that you're always just trying to get the Pyro Jack, or the Jack-o'-lantern as they retranslated it to for this, to the goal at the end, by moving blocks and flicking switches around, as you can see here. So you can flick it around, so then you can move around and get around to the goal. The first 4 stages are pathetically easy, you'll work them out in no time at all. But stage 5 is the first one that might catch up a little bit, but going beyond that, almost every other stage you will find yourself just stopping at and looking at for a while, and some of which might just fry your brain, especially as you get closer to stage 20. Stage like 18, 19 and 20 all suck. They really do. So, starting from stage 5, you're going to notice ever so slight little cuts in the footage. That is me running through, getting a feel for it, working out where I need to go, and then once I've got it, I reset the puzzle, because you can reset by just pressing the menu button and saying and it says reset it, and then from there doing it all straight. Now I've worked out what I need to do. But even doing that, you're going to see throughout the duration of this, there's a number of points where, because this was a 3-hour recording session that I have cut down to 27 minutes, my brain fried. My brain well and truly fried. You're going to see on the later ones, I either make silly mistakes, or I just stare at what I'm trying to work out for like minutes on end, trying to remember what it is I needed to do to work my way through it. It took a very long time to do this. It was one whole session was just this. And then it took me 3 days to edit this shit together, because it was 3 hours of recording. But if you're trying to work out what the puzzle is, do just, starting from this stage, pay attention to just the paths I take, because I do take what I believe is the most precise pathing you can take to get through it. So just follow it along and you should do fine. And the fact that my brain fries as this goes on, like you're already seeing it a little bit there, where I stopped before I put it down, because I was like, is this what I was going to do? It's like if you just pay attention and see what I'm doing and follow it along, you'll be fine. You will get through this. You can always see I'm hesitant. But I've got something to talk about. And you know, as it's been a part of the E3 discussion, I know I'm always technically a day behind when it comes to uploading, because I record the day before. So it's always, by the time it goes live, the next day's E3 events have happened. But yesterday, the two that I watched was Nintendo and Bandai. I'm not even going to talk about Bandai. I knew that they said they weren't going to talk about much and was going to prioritize talking about the new Dark Anthology. I just didn't realize it was only going to be Dark Anthology they were going to talk about, and that was it. They didn't talk about anything else whatsoever, and that's my bad for just misreading it. So I don't want to say I'm disappointed, because they made it clear. I just misread it, I suppose. Nintendo, though, yeah, everyone's kind of in the same headspace of they were like the only fucking good show. Well, next to Xbox, I think Xbox had a good show, but they were the only like really strong show at E3. And for me personally, to be on topic, Shin Megami Tensei V got proper showcased finally, and I can't stress enough how significant that is, considering the game was revealed and got a teaser alongside the revealed trailer and showcase of the Nintendo Switch itself. The game's been in development since before the Switch was out, because they had something to show at the Switch reveal, but they actually revealed the console all those many moons ago. Like 5 years ago now. So like, the fact that it's finally now coming out, and it's coming out in November. It's like November 11th Japan, November 12th rest of the world, where it's like, that is beautiful. It's never been that good for an Atlus game in terms of release window, so I'm so fucking excited for that. It looks amazing. The only thing is that I don't own a Switch. And it's like, I can't convince myself to buy a Switch for one game, even if it's the game I want. So I'm just gonna pray, I suppose, that it ends up being a timed exclusive and it's not on Switch forever. It might not be, but I don't want to. I don't want to be like, oh, it's never coming to Switch, but at the same time, I don't want to be like, oh, it's only it might come to something else. I'm kind of in this middle road where there's more than enough reason to believe that it will be a Switch exclusive for its entire lifespan, but there's also more than enough history with Atlus recently to suggest that they're gonna want to put it on other platforms later on. I just hope they don't go down the Persona 4 Golden route and just stick it on PC and then that's it. I want it to come to everything. Shin Megami Tensei as a franchise is one of those series that I really wish had more appeal. I was so happy that SMT3 Nocturne Remastered, other than even existing, is on Steam, Switch, and PlayStation, because it's on more platforms. Yeah, I don't think it was ever going to end up on Xbox, just because as much as Microsoft have been making so much of an effort recently, and things like Yakuza are proof of their efforts, they still don't have the biggest Japanese market, or at least not as big as they ever want. And I don't think Atlus or... well, yeah, Atlus in particular really are interested in doing anything with Microsoft the whole time. It's still like that, so I really wouldn't be surprised if an Atlus title never really comes to Xbox. Because I think the only one that did was like, what, 9? SMT 9? And not as in SMT, as in the 9th game, it was a subtitle that was called, like 9. I think it was called 9. I might be mistaken. So it was like the 9 kind of thing. That was kind of the subtitle structure of it. And you see me kind of work out what I'm supposed to do here. But that was the only one I think that was on Xbox, and I don't remember that selling well at all. So I think that was enough to kind of like break any potential relation anyway. Even though that was years ago, that was on the Xbox original. So that was a very long time ago. So I'd like to think things have changed since then. But yeah, but SMT5 is just, it was my thing. I'm so ready for SMT5. I love the protagonist design when they're all like geared up for demon exploring. Because it's similar to 3. They have a normal design they have presumably only at the start of the game. And then once they get into the demon world, like in this it was the Vortex world, in that one it's something else. They see you travel to a new dimension. So it's like, okay, so the normal world technically still exists, it's just you've been warped to another land. So it's like, okay, that's how they're doing it. Sure, it's a different approach. But the design of the protagonist, everyone's going on about it, but yeah, he looks amazing. I went to say she, but it is actually officially confirmed to be a bloke. But it was one of those things that I kind of wish they didn't confirm. Like it was a bloke, because when SMT5 was revealed properly earlier in the year, well, I say it was actually last year now, wasn't it? It was a while ago. But when SMT5 was proper showcased and we saw the protagonist and whatnot, the protagonist was seemingly deliberately designed to make their gender difficult to work out. Like to be like the impression I got is that it can be whatever you want. If you want the protagonist to be male or female, or trans or whatever, it was your choice, because they allowed you to insert yourself more into it. So the fact that they confirmed it's a bloke, I was kind of like, well, it feels like that went a little against how it felt like they were going. Obviously, we don't know what they were actually going with. Maybe that was never the intention, but it felt very much like the protagonist was deliberately designed to be ambiguous like that. So the fact that they've confirmed it's a bloke, but then I've also sort of weirdly double dipped by making it that the super demonic armor that they wear makes them look extremely feminine, which is, like I said, I absolutely adore the design. I think it's fantastic. I live for SMT5's design. I love the fact that it's not like, now Atlus has got a bigger spotlight on them. They're not doing what Final Fantasy did many moons ago and like serious themselves up a little bit. Obviously it'll still be serious, but like, if you know what I mean, classic Final Fantasy like 1 through 6 had very zany and wacky designs all over the place. Like, some characters were really colourful and out there, but when Final Fantasy took off, they really grounded a lot of the designs. Although not as present, it's still present in 7, some of the zaniness, like with Keishi and whatnot. But as soon as you step into 8, it's super grounded. Even when they're doing kind of the weirder and wilder stuff, all the designs and ideas are a lot more grounded in reality and more serious and not zany Japanese, because they wanted it to appeal to a more worldwide market, and they really wanted to push into that. So the fact that SMT5, now Atlus is in not an identical situation, because Final Fantasy VII's explosion in popularity is still one of the most like bafflingly large things to ever happen in the industry back in the 90s. But Atlus is still under the spotlight quite severely after Persona 5 made Atlus mainstream. And so the fact that now they're going back to mainline SMT and not its spin-off Persona, which, yes, if you I make a point of saying it all the time, but it's hilarious and really fucking annoying how many people still don't realize that SMT is actually the original and not the inspiration. It's the original, and then Persona came later. But the fact that mainline SMT is completely continuing to embrace what makes it quirky, like having the protagonist design be all blue with hair that goes down to the ankles that flows in the wind as you move. And all the demons are size accurate to what they should be. So when you're wandering around the field, like Onis will be taller than you, and they'll just be waddling around. The slimes will like go up to your hip, but then there are some things like the certs or like the rock monsters that are like 5 times bigger than you, or even bigger than that to an extent. Like the angels look giant, and I love that. I love the fact that they've really like put in a lot of money and effort clearly into SMT 5 instead of just hopping on the Persona bandwagon after 5 success and riding it through. Because let's be honest, we know that Persona's the biggest money maker and Atlus know it. But the fact that they're still to an extent sticking to their guns, I mean, like, no, SMT is the origin, so let's make it significant still. Let's make it have, you know, a budget, make it big league. Like, it feels like it's a bigger budget title than Persona. It really does to me. So, and that's similar when you consider that SMT 3 before Persona 5 was Atlus's most expensive endeavor. So it feels like it to an extent is still holding true. Which is another reason why I really hope it's just a timed exclusive and not a permanent exclusive. I want it to come to other platforms so more and more people can experience just how amazing classic Shin Megami Tensei actually is. And it's why I pushed to do this Let's Play so quickly after it came out. Is because I want to show people how special this game is to me. And like how amazing it is in its own way, even though it's drastically different to what a lot of people associate Atlus with now, with not just Persona, but things like Catherine as well. Like, if you like what you see here, and you have a 3DS, try and pick up Strange Journey or Strange Journey Redux, the 3DS remake. I know it's not the easiest thing to do, because DS and 3DS games fucking skyrocketed in price because of how difficult they can be to get. But if you can get a hold of one, pick it up. Strange Journey and Strange Journey Redux is perfect, because it's literally the middleman. Like, it's got more Persona gameplay elements than traditional Shin Megami Tensei. But at the same time, it's still very much a Shin Megami Tensei game. So it's a perfect middleman like title if you're curious about SMT but are really used to Persona. Play Strange Journey, because it does feel like it's got things from SMT and things from Persona kind of together that makes this ultimate package. And Strange Journey is another one that's really underrated. Like, Strange Journey Redux specifically really surprised me with how fun it ended up being, because I enjoyed Strange Journey Basic, like Strange Journey Core, but Redux really, reduxed it. It really spent the time to make it flow better and make it work better, as well as add new content. And they did something that is actually something that I can compliment them, because they did it right over a mistake Nocturne here did wrong. As I've talked about in great length, starting with the Maniacs edition of Nocturne, they added an extra ending, the True Demon ending. The problem with the True Demon ending is, because it's the hardest to get, requires extra efforts to go with, and it has an extra boss at the end, it very much became the canon ending instead of it feeling like just another one of the choice endings among the many choices. Because the original version of Nocturne, there was no true ending. It was neutral, demon, or any of the three choices. So the fact that, or the three reasons, I mean, not choices, but it was those were your endings, and every single one of them was as valid as the other. So, but when the Maniacs edition came out and added the True Demon ending, sorry, my brain's still frying just looking at the footage. I'm excited about SMT 5, guys. Come on. The True Demon ending is what I was getting at. Is it kind of ended up taking that away, but Strange Journey Redux learned from that and did a similar situation but done it right. And what I mean is, in Strange Journey, there are 3 endings. It's Law, Chaos, and Neutral, depending on what choices you make throughout the game and who you agree with later on. Because there's a character that definitely defines what a Law characteristic, and a character that definitely defines a Chaos characteristic. And it's only if you choose to agree with neither of them you start to lean neutral. But in Strange Journey Redux, they added extra endings. But what they did is that they made it that the extra ending will complement will only complement what you were already leaning on. So you get Chaos plus, Law plus, or Neutral plus. Because they had a similar thing where there's an optional mega dungeon that you can work through alongside it, similar to the Labyrinth of Mala in this. but you can only go through so much of it depending on how much content that you don't have to do you've done throughout the main adventure. And as you go through it, you then get access to more floors of the optional mega dungeon to explore it all. About 3 or 4 floors in, you fight the equivalent of Dante, in that game is Alex, which is literally discount Dante, but I love her anyway. She's one of my favorite Atlas, like, Megaton characters, full stop. Alex is such a fun character. She's ruthless and terrifying, but she's fun. But they had their own version that you fight Alex on the end of like the 3rd or 4th floor, like how you fight Dante or Raido at the end of the 3rd floor here. Which, yeah, spoilers, at the end of the 3rd Kalpa we're going to be fighting Dante. But just because I'm making the comparison. But I've already been saying for a while that that it's not the only time we're going to be fighting Dante. We're going to be rematching Dante later in the game anyway, so just telling you it's going to be on the 3rd Kalpa, I think I can get away with saying that just because, like I said, you guys already would have known that's not the last you're going to see of him. But they did a similar thing to Nocturne, and it felt like it was deliberately designed to learn from it, because once you beat that dungeon, Alex says she will agree to help you on the final stretch of the game, and that leads to Lore Plus, Neutral Plus, or Chaos Plus. It's not siding with some old man in a wheelchair, it's siding with a battle ally that will help you out. And it ends up leading to its own unique final boss, but you fight that unique final boss still as a believer of Lore, a believer of Neutral, or a believer of Chaos. Like you still fight it on your terms of belief, so it feels like they just expanded from that idea instead of making it this ending is the canon one like this game does. But that being said, I've never actually got around to finishing Redux, because I got I say finishing properly because I got Chaos Plus on my first run, and I had every intention of going back and doing Lore Plus and Neutral Plus, and it just never happened. Because the game, like, I know this game can be very dungeon crawly at points, but Shin Megami Tensei Strange Journey is nothing but dungeons the entire game. There is no overworld to explore, because it was a DS title, so you just go from dungeon to dungeon. You have a home base, and from that home base you can make, because it's a ship that's like damaged, so it can only fly so much distance. And as you go on, you get more components to repair the ship, so you can travel further and explore more zones. But each zone is a dungeon, and so you can only explore dungeons. And the dungeon crawling to nothing but more dungeon crawling to nothing but more dungeon crawling. Oh, and if you do more content, you can go explore optional extra dungeons that are super big and puzzly, like the Labyrinth of Amala. But it's its own version of it. It's like, it's tiring. It's an amazing game, but it is tiring. It's also technically the easiest game to max out the compendium, because they added this thing called demon codes in Strange Journey Redux, where every single demon, its level, its stats, and its skills generates a code. And if you input that code, it will give you that precise demon with its stat attribute and skills. It will give you exactly that. Well, there's a demon calculator online that you can access very easily, where you put in what demon you want from the list, what skills you want it to have from the list, what level you want it to be, and then it will generate the code for you. So technically, if you're prepared to just sit on it for a while, you could make it generate every single demon in the game and max out your compendium after like half an hour of just going through it, typing the next demon, yada yada. I haven't done it, and I haven't actually touched it really once. I did it once to see if I could, just to see like how it works, and when I realized, oh no, actually it's literally the code and then you can just do that, I was like, oh, okay. That's kind of broken. If you don't want to play the game, you can just do that. You can just give yourself almighty demons, which, to be fair, for New Game Plus runs isn't too actually much of a bad idea if you only want to see the new endings. I definitely would have appreciated that going for all 4 of the endings for SMT 4. Because like that game, it's one of the shorter Shin Megami Tenseis, especially compared to this one. Like, the phrase long, but even though I'm probably going to get it done around about 40 to 45 videos, I think. Like, with how much progress I've made in so little time, my original fear of it being like 90 to 100 videos, I've made a lot more progress a lot quicker than assumed, which I know is kind of standard for me. Every time I say like I expect the project to be longer, it ends up being shorter than it is. But Nocturne, I felt, had more weight because of how much complication there can be with the game's mechanics, and I felt like I'd be spending a lot of time on certain boss fights that would end up dragging out the Let's Play. But as it stands so far, I haven't done too bad. There's been a couple boss fights, and you'll see them when they come to later on, that end up taking a while, but they're not eternal. Like they're not the hour long on a single boss that I had been expecting. Like at least so far. Like, I'm not going to say it's not happening. I've still got a certain dungeon later on that is like got like 4 bosses in it, and all of them take forever. And there's still the 4th and 5th Kalpa, and both of them end on a very major league boss fight. That on my blind run at least, one of them took me an hour and a half on one attempt to kill it, just because I'd be like, it kept on lowering stats, and it just took forever to do any decent damage to it, but it wasn't killing me either, so the fight just dragged. And there's a certain boss on the final tower, like the actual final dungeon of the game, where its entire gimmick is that it just hulks out its defense as much as humanly possible, and has a lot of health. It has the most health of any boss in the game. And so, in fact, it hulks out its defense as well, just means the fight takes a small eternity. So I'm expecting that one to take a little bit as well. Which it'll be interesting when I get to the final dungeon, because the last Magatama in the game you can get that isn't the reward for getting every single Magatama is halfway up the final dungeon of the game. You go halfway up and there's, no kidding, a shop there. And you buy the last Magatama there. And that's the one that teaches you the best physical skill in the game. Freiguki. Or Freikagul. Or Frey something or other. It's the attack, have you ever seen footage of this game, where you shoot a laser beam out of your hand. And it's got very high damage and an extremely high crit rate, and it almost never misses. Also, this is stage 20, the hardest one. Despite the fact it's in such a tiny arena, you have to get... And there's exactly enough cubes for you to only get away with sacrificing one to a hole and then build the path. Sacrifice that one as soon as you can, just because it will give you the room you need to move all the other pieces around. And you're just trying to get them into the bottom left corner of this space so you can make that path down to the end. This is the one that's kind of the biggest reason why it took me 3 hours, and it's the rest of the video. But yeah, I'm not actually sure what I'll do yet when I get to it, when I actually buy that Magatama. Because once you've got all the Magatamas in the game, you gain access to another optional dungeon, and if you can clear it, you get a bonus Magatama that's like the game kind of tries to hide away from you. That isn't required to beat the true final boss if you're going for TDE, but it certainly helps. The final Magatama of the game adds 10 to every stat but luck, and makes you immune to all elements and physicals and status conditions. So the only thing that can hurt you is Almighty. Instant kills will not touch you because you'll block them. Any element of tool attack that comes your way will be blocked. Like, you are God. Just only non-elemental magic will hurt you. And it makes the rest of the journey of the game so much more bearable. And it makes the true demon ending extra boss feel a little more fair. Because I'm going to just break it to you right now. The true final boss of this game understands you've beaten absolutely everything else, including all the things that were supposed to be ridiculously challenging to get to it. So it lets loose. It's like, you know what? This is the true final boss. You asked for this. You didn't have to fight this boss if you went for literally any other ending. We're going to do this to you. Bring it on. And the reason why I'm making a point of saying that is I haven't recorded that far ahead. I'll probably tell you guys when it is I have finished the game in my recording. So it's like I'm still a ways out, so I keep on putting it off if I'm honest. It's because of Guilty Gear. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It's entirely because of Guilty Gear. I'm really in Strive. I'm really in the Guilty Gear Strive mindset right now, and I'm loving it. And so I just keep on playing that. Then I also played Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, which I have a lot of opinions towards. I like a lot of it, but I don't like a lot of other of it. And I'm going to do a video at some point talking about it, but I want to kind of collect my thoughts on it a little bit more. Because I've done 3 full playthroughs of it now, and maxed out all the job classes, the 3 job classes that are available in that trial. And I like a lot of what I feel, but I don't like a lot of what I see. I think that's the best way to put it. Like, there's a lot of the game that looks really off, and it feels like a discount Neo, and not a Final Fantasy with Neo. It just feels like a low-budget version of Neo. And I say that as someone who, as I've said it before, knows what the original Neo Alpha looked like, and know that it feels like the original Neo Alpha, so it will probably be a hell of a lot better come final release. It's just like my concerns still need to be expressed to an extent, just to make sure that they don't go ignored. And I'm glad that a lot of people are in the same mindset of, like, they know how the Neo Alpha and Neo 2 Alpha tests went and how rough around the edges they looked. But at the same time, it doesn't mean we can just ignore the problems with this. There's a lot of problems. The biggest one's the goddamn lighting. But I don't want to go too far ahead of myself. I want to actually, like I said, do an actual video talking about it at some point. So I don't know when I'll do it. So I don't want to rush into it until, like I said, I've collected my thoughts. But it will happen. I will do a video of it. Like, I uploaded me killing Chaos for the first time, which was on normal. And I've seen what he's like on hard, and he looks very similar, just hits much harder and is a bit quicker. So I'm like, okay, so that's doable, but I can also see the people who hopped on hard first, I can see why they were stuck on him for like 2 hours. Because you don't really get a chance to learn how he acts, like you do on normal. On normal, you get a good amount of time to learn how Chaos acts, and how he works. Because it's just that little bit slower, and he's just that little bit lighter-handed. Whilst on hard, he rips your head off. And he rips your head off so quick that you never really get a chance to learn it for like an hour or two straight. But you can see at this point, I've almost worked it out. I'm nearly there. I've just got one more piece to put in place. It's just the angle of this block where it starts out is so annoyingly awkward. You have to really kind of be precise with your movements to get it where you need to be. But once you've got it there, you're in the clear. And you're going to see me do a victory lap once I get there, because I was so happy that it was finally done. Yeah, I do a victory lap. But in summary, Shin Megami Tensei V was my biggest thing on E3. That game blew my mind. I loved what I saw. Metroid Dread is finally fucking real. That game's been talked about since the GameCube era. I'm so happy that game's real. I don't have a Switch to play it either, but at this point I'm like, I can't wait for it to just come out to exist, if that makes sense. Like, even if I can't play it, I just want it to be out and hear people be happy about Metroid again, because I fucking loved Metroid as a kid. The only reason I say as a kid is because they haven't really released a Metroid game in like forever. But my point stands. Like, I'm so excited for it. I'm so looking forward to it. It looks so good. Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, I'm sure will be good. It's just, but for me, it just looks like more Breath of the Wild, so I'm not as excited for it as I could be. But it's time to wrap this up. Next time on Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, we're going to continue exploring Asakusa properly. But until then, you guys take care now. Peace. Oh, dude, you gotta understand. I was doing Puzzle Boy for 3 hours. Do you know how bad it is?